Alfred Baumgarten. Baron Alfred Moritz Friedrich Baumgarten, Ph.D. 13 November 1842 – 3 October 1919 was co-founder and president of the St. Lawrence Sugar Refinery at Montreal, life governor of the Montreal General Hospital, and master of Foxhounds for the Montreal Hunt. His home in Montreal's Golden Square Mile is today home to the McGill Faculty Club. Germany. Born November 13, 1842, at Dresden. He was the son of Dr. Moritz Friedrich Oswald Baumgarten (1813–1849), court physician to King Johann of Saxony, and Emmy Zacher, lady-in-waiting to Queen Carola of Saxony. His mother was a daughter of Gustav Zacher, an early friend of the composer Richard Wagner. Alfred was an elder brother of Paul Clemens von Baumgarten. Educated in Dresden, he studied chemistry at the University of Berlin and the University of Göttingen, which included 2 years' practical experience in the chemical works at Schöningen. In 1864, he was awarded a Doctor of Philosophy for his dissertation on the occurrence of vanadium in the mother lies of soda manufacturing. He became manager of a sugar beet house at Hammersleben, remaining there until 1866, when business opportunities surrounding the rapid development of the New World attracted him. New York. Baumgarten came to New York City in 1866 with the intention of entering business life in connection with North American Chemical Works. He was for a time assistant in the laboratory of Professor Charles F. Chandler of the New York School of Mines. There, he formed a partnership with C. W. Walter and established the Laurel Hill Chemical Works under the firm name of Walter and Baumgarten. The company later came to be known as the Nicholson Company, the largest acid works on the American continent. Baumgarten also held the position of manager of the Long Island Sugar Refinery in New York. Montreal. In 1873, Baumgarten came to Montreal as manager of the De Castro Syrup Company. In 1879, he co-founded the St. Lawrence Sugar Refining Company, becoming the company's vice president and afterwards president following the death of Walter Richard Elmenhorst in 1894. The company imported raw sugar from the British West Indies and Europe before refining it into pure sugar. The enterprise was established on a relatively small scale, but the plant was constantly enlarged to meet the growing demand of the trade. The original buildings in Montreal were destroyed by a fire in 1887, and the new factory was built at Maisonneuve on a site which allowed the largest steamships laden with sugar to deposit their cargo at the factory doors. By 1908, the company was valued at $5 million and exported 300,000 barrels annually. In 1911, he was appointed a director of the Bank of Montreal. He was a director of C. Meredith and Company, vice president of the Montreal Archaeological Institute, and published several essays on chemistry. He retired from business life in 1912 and was succeeded as president of the St. Lawrence Refinery by John Wilson McConnell, though he remained the principal shareholder and was given the position of honorary president. From just May to October 1913, the St. Lawrence Refinery's estimated profit was $780,249. Anti-German sentiment in World War I. Leading up to the First World War, anti-German sentiment spread through the British Empire, and after the outbreak of war the hysteria reached a peak. The St. Lawrence Sugar Refinery was directly targeted for allegedly still being in the hands of the enemy, as many of the principal shareholders were of German origin. By 1915, J.W. McConnell was forced to hold a shareholders' meeting to discuss the serious menace to the welfare of our business caused by hostile publications in the press against certain persons connected with our company. They were left with little choice. Every shareholder with a German-sounding name was bought out. As well as being bought out, Baumgarten was forced to resign all positions connected to the firm, as did his brother-in-law, the vice president and managing director, Otto Wilhelm/William Donner. This caused Baumgarten much sadness, and adding to this sadness, several associates from before the war shunned him personally. His close friends stood by him and were equally frustrated by his unjust treatment. At his death in 1919, Sir George Drummond affirmed the standing of his friend as a man of excellence in every particular. Family and private life. In 1885, Baumgarten married Martha Christina Donner (1866–1953), one of the two children of Jean/John Donner (1841–1899) of Altona, Hamburg, and Agnes P. Grebe, a descendant of Conrad Heinrich Donner of Donner's Park, Altona. Martha's father came to New York City and co-founded the De Castro and Donner Sugar Refinery. He was superintendent of the American Sugar Refining Company and manager of the Sugar Trust at New York. Donner shared with his son-in-law a love of horses and was a prominent member of the Jockey Club, though he never allowed any of his horses to be entered into a race under his own name. Martha's only brother, Otto Donner, married Alice Louise Monk, niece of the Honorable Friedrich de Bartsch Monk. The Baumgartens were the parents of two daughters. Mimi Donner Baumgarten b. 1888. Elsa Baumgarten b. 1900. Married Reginald Leslie Galt 1881–1943, a first cousin of Brigadier General the R.T. Honorable Andrew Hamilton Galt of Montreal, who personally raised Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry. They were the parents of Osra and Peter Hamilton Galt 1919–1978. He purchased a country home at St. Agade des Monts in 1895. It eventually had stables and galleries and dominated the hillside overlooking the lake. The house still stands today at 154 Chemin du Lac. His large stables still exist today too, having evolved through becoming a recreational center with an indoor skating rink with apartments. The balance of the land north of the road became the manor house, now La Calèche, and the fields became a ski hill. Baumgarten was a member of the Jockey, Forest and Stream, Mount Royal, and St. James clubs at Montreal. He was life governor of the Montreal General Hospital, the Montreal Western Hospital, and the Alexandra Hospital. He had enjoyed a prominent place in Montreal's social world, but when the First World War broke out in 1914, he was shunned by many of his old associates because of his German origins. Aspersions were cast that he was a sympathizer. At his country home, stories were told that the house was used by the spy Joachim von Ribbentrop. His close friends stuck by him, but he retired from public life and spent the greater part of his time at his country house. He died in 1919, leaving provision for his family and generous donations to the 3 hospitals he served as governor. Montreal Hunt. Baumgarten was an ardent sportsman and had a passion for horses. From 1882 to 1887, Baumgarten was master of Foxhounds for the Montreal Hunt, rejuvenating the club after the departure of British troops from Canada in 1870. He introduced dinners and dancing after the meet, and in 1881 bought a parcel of land on the corner of what is today Mount Royal Avenue and Delormier Avenue. At his own expense, on the land he built new kennels and a clubhouse that included a banquet room, a billiards room, a ballroom, a swimming pool, and a library. The front of the clubhouse featured a long gallery described as a piazza where ladies and friends might view the meet. The interior was decorated in light oak with burnished brass. The fireplace in the entrance hall was decorated with Dutch tiles depicting hunting scenes. The swimming pool was described as an oriental plunge bathroom all inlaid with white tiles. Baumgarten House, Montreal. In 1880, Baumgarten purchased land on McTavish Street within Montreal's Golden Square Mile. 3 of the 8 houses of Rupert's Terrace were demolished to make room for the Baumgarten House, which was completed in 1887. The house had a modest exterior, but the interior was sumptuously decorated and boasted a sunken bathtub and indoor swimming pool, the first in the city. It was also the first private residence to be fitted with electrical lighting. In 1902, he made further extensions to his home, adding further reception rooms and a ballroom built for his 2 daughters who had just come of age. The ceiling of the ballroom, from which hung several chandeliers, was supported by marble columns, and a minstrel's gallery was suspended from the ceiling with brass cords. The ballroom floor was built on springs to help boost the dancers' feet. Baumgarten personally designed and built the spring floor in 1882 for the Montreal Hunt clubhouse, and it was transplanted to his home when the Hunt moved to a new home. The Gothic gallery, which spanned 2 stories of the house, was made to resemble a German hunting lodge and was covered by an immense, amber-colored stained glass skylight. In the early 1900s, his home was the favorite Montreal place for Governor-General the Earl of Minto. Shortly after the outbreak of the First World War, Baumgarten offered his Montreal residence to be used as a convalescent home for disabled soldiers returning from the front, and donated liberally towards this cause. After Baumgarten's death in 1919, the house continued to be lived in by his widow and their 2 daughters. In 1926, McGill University purchased the house for a nominal sum to serve as a residence for the principal of McGill. General Sir Arthur Currie occupied the house until 1935, but it was felt by his successor that the house was too grand for his needs, and from 1935 the house was renovated to become the McGill Faculty Club. At this time, the Gothic gallery was split into 2 separate floors, the lower of which is now the main dining room, and the upper of which serves as the billiard room. References